Come on, get back up to full quality. Jesus. Pain in my ass. Alright. I'd say we have enough data for recording. But we're back with more Death Stranding 2. We are in the mountains, which really suck. We also learned that fucking Deadman's soul can inhabit Hartman's body while Hartman's on the beach, which is crazy. Goddamn. Alright, hi buddy. What is Dolman doing?
Ah, yes. No matter what misfortune may befall him, that adventurer is going to keep exploring the continent. I just know it.
Yep.
Is it the primal calling that compels him to make these journeys?
No, he's just a dummy.
Perhaps he's become addicted to the thrills that come with experiencing the unknown. Regardless of his motivation, when I see how distressed his son is, I want to do what I can to get him home safe.
Did he go out again? I know he told us about something that was nearby. But we also just fished him out of the fucking mountains. There's no way he's back over somewhere else, is he? Also, did we go poop? I don't remember. I'm gonna go poop just in case. Go doo-doo, dude. Out here washing his ass and stuff. Wash that ass, brother. Oh, look at the little bike. It's cute. Whoever did the art for this is really pretty. A lot of Death Stranding stuff in the background. Go to the surface. So I am a little tempted. They're trying to do more zipline infrastructure today. Because doing deliveries to the mountains is gonna fucking suck. And in general, there's at least 1, 2, 3, 4. Although I think we can discount this because we see a big old building and it's got the usual kind of like railroad liner thing sticking out. So this probably counts for this wedge. This we're not super sure of. I can't see anything that's extra obvious. So it might be a camouflaged structure. Maybe even whatever this is. We'll have to see whenever they send us that way. Our next big thing is over at the Environmental Observatory, which is in a really shitty spot. This is not great. The adventurer's here. This spot for sure has somebody, but again, kind of hard to guess. I really hope it's not somewhere here. Something stupid. I'm hoping it's like right here, whatever it is. Ooh, it's like a weird cliff face here. And also a ravine or like a river coming out from here. I'm not sure what this is gonna be. So this is still cut off. This is where we dealt with the terrace. So they have a facility here. But it means that there's something or someone either along here that we didn't see. Which I think we would have seen them already if they were here. So they're either up here somewhere. Or they're tucked away. Ooh, hold on. This looks promising. Look at this. That might be a structure then. Right around here. At a... Now that being said, until they're introduced to us, that doesn't really mean much. But it does make me a little curious. As to where we are right now. There's a couple things that we were thinking about doing. This area is very curious because we haven't had any recovery missions send us here. Someone put a bridge here and it actually went all the way across. But this looks like it would be either a big old timefall lake or a tar lake of some sort. It's hard to know which. There's also the fact that we've been getting by without really using any of these pavers, but a bunch of them right now are actually really close. In fact, it might do us some good to find a truck and really go out and pillage some shit. I don't remember where my truck is. Oh, I know where it is, but it's not in a good spot. I'll tell you that much right now. But I remember where it is. Are there any in this garage? There are cruisers. There are off-road. This guy's just got 2 machine guns. Really not an auto puller? Damn. I mean, we'll use this one, I guess. I feel like going out of our way to get the one that we already had is gonna take too long. Because we gotta bring it down from the mountain if we're gonna use it, and gotta go all the way around and over. No. Eventually, oh, he's got the Tomorrow one on. The Tomorrow one looks so different from what Tomorrow actually looks like. It's really cute though. She reminds me a little bit of almost like an anime like Alice in Wonderland or like a Beltorchka. The art style in particular is also some of that reminds me of stuff from like Near Reincarnation. Alright, we're gonna try to go in here. I think it's time to pillage some terrorists and see what kind of materials they got, because I want to finish some of those pavers if possible. And then from there, we also have the liners to do. So we got a whole other rail that goes between 2 other cities, potentially. There's another catapult here. Also, these communal ones, I keep forgetting, they don't affect the bandwidth that we have. So they're just kind of like bonuses. We don't really have to screw with them too much. Some of them are dumb. Like the ramps. We're not really going to use them. Some of them almost seem like they're in spots just to grief. But shit like the catapult, it's whatever. Alright, alright. I don't trust that truck to actually do what it needs to do, so I'm just gonna get out and deal with them. Is that truck armored? Actually, these guys are a little too far away for this one. Regular grenade launcher has some more range. Whoop. Oh, there goes one.
Wait, what's that there? Where are all these enemies coming from?
We've already experienced this, dude. What are you so surprised about? In fact, we experienced this like almost a whole other time ago. Here's another one. There it is. From downtown. Uh-oh. A little bit closer. Oh, shit. Son of a bitch. Come here. Fuck it. Do I have some kind of melee on me? Seemingly no? Uh-oh. That's not good. Oh, and I got destroyed. That sucks. I need to get a twin rod on me, dude. I mean, I can always use my fist. I guess it's not that big a deal in that regard. Oh, is that one? No, he's slumped over. Oh, what's that? Oh my god, you can't run for shit, dude. Jesus Christ, you got barely anything on your back. Fucking move. flying. It's definitely not the last of them, but where would the rest of them be? Oh, there he is. They had one in that tower. It's the guy on the left. Oh, there he is. No, those are just little sentries. We might be mostly okay right now, actually, though. Alright. Oh, nope. There's just a dude hanging out here. What the fuck? Excuse you. Anybody else? I'll take this. It's mine. 'Cause I lost the blood bag earlier. Oh, this guy's got his stuff loaded up with at least basic batteries. I don't know if those are level 1s or 2s. But once you get this on a charger, it might, like, the general extension is actually really good. There's a long distance boy right here. Hey, Yibby. Nice info. Okay. Grab it. Not the ladder. We'll also check the meal boxes. Oh, can you fucking... yeah. Ooh, twin rod. You gonna have twin rod? I need it. Where? Is he up here? Oh, hi. Hold on, I'm coming. Hold on, hold your horses. Beat you up. Take it is, bitch. All right. We're doing good. Grab that twin rod just in case. And the ARs and stuff that they have are still pretty low end. Whoa. A bunch of materials up here. Ooh, grab that one.
Hook that one.
You have to go grab that metal though. We don't really need chemicals, to be honest. We'll just double fist them. Just fucking bring it to the truck, because this is a fresh truck. There's no real cargo on here. Put them in there. Okie dokie. So, oh, I want a PCC. No, pick it up.
That's the way.
Wowzer!
Good night. Yep. Have a good night, Metro. Unless you mean good evening, but also still good night. Oh, we got that sped up hacking too. Vehicle paints. Oh, and another oxygen mask. Whoa. Hell yeah. That's a good one right there. I'm gonna send that to another thing. Do we have power gloves on? I think we do. Yeah, let's recycle these out of post box if possible.
Gotta stretch my legs.
Ooh. More metals, hell yeah. Resins and special alloys are still going to be useful if you want to do liners for the monorail. The more immediate in this area is going to be us fixing up the pavers. Oh, metal. Can you? Is there any way that you can maybe see that? Probably not. I might have to go inside for this one. Yeah. Hold on. Well, if I'm gonna do that, I need to park this right because I can't put it through the front. Move your ass a little closer to the door. There we go. Go and grab this. Where are you? Put you right back here. Whoop. Ready. What else do we got? Not a lot material-wise. That mule box over there we haven't looked at yet. So we'll probably go over there and take a little gander. Hello! Oh yeah, there's a post box right here. We can go and recycle some of our stuff. If we want. Let me high five this while we're here too. Yummy. High five. Oh yeah. We killed a couple BTs, so we're definitely good on chiral crystals. So if we gotta pee on anything, then no problem. Oh my god, it's a level 2. May miracles never cease. Hell yeah. Yeah, let's recycle some things here. I don't think there's anything else that's like destroyed or whatever. You can also put some chiral crystals in here just in case. Bep. Not bad. What level is this? It's level 3. I don't know if you can necessarily make too much with what's on here, but it would be nice to have some of these stocked up, just because they are good checkpoints if we really do need stuff. Oh my god, yes! Some good guns in here. Oh my, hell yeah. That's a good haul right there, brother. Hell yeah. Wee.
My leggies are kind of fucked up.
Hey, did I take them? Yeah. I don't really need the chemicals right now.
Thank you for your cooperation. All contributions are welcome.
I pee on it a little bit. A little bit.
Very handy. Thank you kindly. This one's for you. Thanks for the help. Very handy.
Let's go. It feels like someone else finished this, because I don't know if I did or not. But that's fine, because that's how it should be. We'd already put in a lot into these anyway. So interacting with other people on the network should mean that these get bumped up a little bit over time. That being said, yeah, I think the next one's over there. How much does that have? Ooh, that one does not have a lot. There's one past this that I think has more. This one's already done. This one, no. What am I thinking? Oh, it's these. It's these two. So further out in the desert, there's two that are easier to do. These ones need a lot. And I contributed to at least one of them. This one we haven't yet. We should probably just try to finish these off. I'll put a marker here so that we know where it is. And then hopefully, over time, we can work on the other ones that are here. Data scientist. Where is Petco? She's near here, yeah? Oh, don't get out. That's the wrong button. That's not the right button. Get back in there. I feel like I gotta have a marker on her because she's like never. It's never super obvious.
Gotcha.
Compact surveillance camera.
You're mine. Snack.
Vegetable juice. Goddamn. Grab that.
You're mine.
What is... It's another animal. Another friggin' koala, brother. Drop off this extra junk for her. Machine gun mastery. Oh, it's a level 2. There you go.
Now displaying your current porter grade.
Oh. Master Deliverer.
ほんと気をつけて。夜中はガチでやばいから。
Order completed. Well done.
Recovery. To the architect. I don't know if I have a line to him. We tried doing at least a little bit of line structure for him. But the BT area near him makes it really hard to do that, which sucks. Like, we were testing it the other day, and legitimately, like, we physically ran into one and, like, just yoinked us off the line, and we had to fight. Or, like, run away. I was like, god damn. That sucked. But, the architect would be a good source of extra stuff when it comes to bandwidth. So it is in our interest to at least try. Not right now, though. We're gonna kind of focus on other shit in the meantime. We could do one for the Pioneer since we're heading out that way, actually. That'd probably be a little bit easier. Put those into the truck.
Order accepted. Thank you.
Sometimes there's BT areas around here too, though. So D's here, which means that's the closest other paver we got. And that's the first one we gotta visit to see how much we can really put in it. Aerial vision of the Arctic has been destroyed by rising waters. Oh. Oh, and here goes the other stretch of road someone else finished. This is where the end of the line for that happens. Which is crazy, because there's just a paver right there. And so it doesn't go very far, it just stretches out the other way really far. Yeah, this is probably where the road is. Yeah. You can see all the lines and shit. A lot of people walking around this thing too. Doing this and that.
This looks like the way to go.
Ooh, we don't have enough ceramics. Fuck. Plenty of everything else. We might have to legitimately either go back to that one distro where we know we have a bunch of stuff stored, or just pull some from one of the nearby shelters. Where's the other paver on the way here? Is it this one? Yeah, I think that's it. Someone put a charger near here too. Pioneer's out that way, so once we visit this one, we gotta hook it left. go up and over the sand barge. Can't pee in this.
Okay.
How am I supposed to work in these conditions? Okay. Our tower is getting a little bit taller because the excess materials are getting put on our back. Yeah, but we need a good chunk of ceramics across the board here, it seems. Come on, don't you start put me over. Ah, come on. Got polar spots. What? That's weird. There's a little rest area here too. Oh, there's a little guy. Put them here. Ooh. Okay.
Ah, is it night already? And you're here even though it's dark out?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, man. There's no need to risk your life. Let's see if you've been doing all right with the orders.
What do we got?
That's a crazy amount of cargo. Like a legit insane amount. You got me shook with this delivery.
We'll check a special alloys. How much ceramics does he have? Ooh. More bandwidth.
Damn, you're like a helping machine.
Desert
I'm
red.
getting teary-eyed. For real. Quick, take this.
Bandwidth increase? Hell
That's
yeah.
more
That's
material, Sam.
honestly, that's what we're doing this
I
for
don't
now.
give a fuck.
I don't give a fuck. Damn, dude.
Now displaying your current porter grade.
Would you look at that? We just hit connection level 4, dude. Probably because you keep trudging through the desert just to check in with me. Mad respect, for real. Now, this may come across as a little random, but I've rustled up a nifty new pattern just for you.
Thank you.
But like, what even is a pattern anyway? Yeah, fuck it. You'll definitely dig it. I mean, you just got it, dude. See you when I see you.
Yep. Bye-bye. Fuck it.
Order complete.
Brother talks like me too much. It's fucking with me. Two of these for her. Alright. Fuck it.
Order accepted. Thank you.
Now, I'm jinxing it by saying it, but there really shouldn't be anything between here and her that should be particularly crazy. Should be alright. As long as I can fucking leg it over this. How's it? Hi. It's gone, Archie. Tyler report. I had the worst food experience yesterday. Oh lord. I'm sure there's a story if you would like to divulge such things. But hopefully you've had better food experiences since then. And hopefully you're doing good today. Around here doing 9 to 5 shit on my non 9 to 5 time. I.e. delivery. Oh my god. Let's see. So that's where we... Is that Motherhood right there? Yeah, it is. At Subway yesterday. Halfway through this, I've finished something very hard. Oh no. Gonna find out it was like a spoon or something. Yeah, out there. Yeah. Yeah, I said. There we go. Thank you. It was a foil cap. Okay, that's not much better. Like the seals on the sausage juices. Hey, better than it being a choking hazard, but yeah, what the fuck? That's wild. Potential. Almost stricken down.
Snack.
By plastic. But not quite. Livid if I saw in a circle of plastic. I don't even... I know that when they put in the ingredients and stuff, they tend to just like fist it, right? But even then, like, you gotta notice. I guess in that case, they did not. Ooh, I kind of like... It's Coca-Cola colored, I guess, which is, you know, probably something to be said about how that's been imprinted into my brain due to corpo shit, but it's kind of neat. I like it. And nice. I need to crouch. As a doorway so low. I'm definitely doing. Thankfully, I have not had too many choking hazards, but I'm also someone who will choke on their spit and a small grain of rice and nearly die. So, you know, so far we've been alright though.
Working late, I see. Thanks. Hold it. This looks to be in wonderful condition. Not just anyone could have done what you did.
Is that us getting an extra star? No. The final star always takes like 1,000,000 deliveries and like lost cargo to do though. Oh my god, what the fuck? None of these are recover. Oh, wait, no, I lied. Hold on. That's the same spot too. We've done this one. What? How do you keep losing shit in the same spot, lady? What's wrong with you? I'm almost very tempted to do this one and go all the way back and grab that, but that would be a pain in the ass. The fastest way to go would be through the terrace over there. Assuming that they don't have it completely blocked off, or we just wouldn't have to get out for a second and fight them anyway. Oh, she's got something for the adventure up in the mountains. Fuck. Where do... Okay, so the liner is already done. Is this restored all the way? I feel like the answer is no. Part of the highway is already done over there. But it looks like most of the line between this and East Fort Knott's already done. So we can just monorail back and forth if we want. There's no other checkpoints. It doesn't necessarily go through anything. And the mechanic's way over here anyway. Are there any that just go directly to him? Yeah, this one does. Because he's actually almost there to another... Yeah, we'll do that. Nutritional drinks. Oh, onto the pickup off-road here. Okay.
Order accepted.
I'm gonna go do it.
I know.
I wish these Carol bridges were a little more sturdy. I can't drive up that. It's just gonna let me sink through. Can't quite do that. I don't know if a cycle could necessarily do it either. I got away with it kind of like once because it just dropped me onto some rocks that I could climb up, but no. That's a little too steep. Despite our usual stubbornness. We got a little hill up here that we can go through anyway. Yeah, unfortunately we got work later today, but that's not going to be until the afternoon, so we got a little bit of time to mess around here. Oh, big old bridges. There he is. Now, considering that this set of liners is already here, it's a little bit unfortunate that they're all facing this way, because it does mean that the kind of checkpoints that they have in between them for where the liner bases start are blocked to going out that way unless they're on an off angle. But it is possible to feed some forks off the sides of those. Ooh, a sun candle. You know, for the fact that these guys are in post-apocalyptia, some of the orders they make are maybe a little too Amazon-like. A fragrant sun candle, huh? For you and your fellow mothers with still baby syndrome.
I didn't mean to make you stay out late. I'll check your orders now. That's a lot of cargo. You did well to bring it all here. I know this. I've been looking all over for it.
Hey, we got another star. Hell yeah.
Thanks for your constant
What is
support.
that?
I have another gift to share with you.
A mortar. Weapon component for pickup off-roader. Automatically fires MP shells at long range and enemies. The shell explodes on impact, inflicting damage on all targets in the blast area. That's actually really good. As long as it has a better, like, reaction time, that might be a little bit better to have on here instead of the MG.
Use them.
Now displaying your current portal grade.
When equipped to a vehicle, this mortar will automatically target and engage enemies. It fires multi-purpose shells, which are proven to be effective against a wide variety of threats. Bear in mind, it launches these shells in an arc to hit distant targets, and conversely, it can't hit ones which get too close. Also, any cargo that happens to be near an explosion is at risk of being damaged as well. So, make sure that you only use it when the situation allows. Stay safe out there, friend. I'll see you later.
Order completed. Well done.
I'm assuming, since it's automated, we can't really sense BTs either, more than likely. I don't know, our machine gun hits those BT balloons though. So maybe it wouldn't be that bad. That's the other thing. This whole area is a little disjointed when it comes to ways to travel around and get things to where they need to be. What kind of stuff that... Whoa, give. That's mine. Put that on here. And another level 2. Put that on my back. Communication robot. What? Probably not the weirdest thing, but I do kind of wonder what that would imply. Yeah, I gotta figure out. Let me look at the map. We gotta figure out a better way to the architect. Pizza chef is there, architect is here. We did make this fork. And I think there was a communal one that was here. We made one that goes across and then up from Hartman's lab. That's pretty close. I still want one that, like, closes the gap. Maybe it either goes up top and reaches to something else. Still a bit of a leg from here to there. There is a safe house that we can pretty easily use as a checkpoint, though. So it's not off the menu. Similarly, when it comes to liners, we do have everything from this North Tower Lake mine that we had to really try to make an effort to connect. Someone finished this one. All the other ones are not done yet. And in fact, they passed the East Distro completely and go somewhere else. I'm assuming they go here because there's a line that goes from this all the way across the bridge. But then there's also this. That looks like it would have a line. So maybe... Yeah, it looks like it shits out the other side of East Fort Knot. Probably goes across the coast. Comes here. I don't think there's one in the back here. No, this is all closed off. So that's just the end of that. That's kind of similar to the one for West Fort Knot. West Fort Knot goes to a mine further out here, north of F1. And that ends at South Distro, which actually goes all the way out to the crater mine. It's probably one of the longer monorail routes that we have. Let's see. This whole area is just BT country, which really sucks. So a lot of the forks here aren't super useful. We'd almost have to make a route from here out. But even then, again, another BT spot. Not as direct in terms of being in the way of other things. The other thing is just a matter of, like, say where we're at. There's a fork here. We can probably get to the track layer here. Maybe that can see this one. But that's probably too far. We would have to have another one in between here to go up and over. And see about this being in line. Probably with something closer to the Ghost Hunter. Or these other pavers. So that I can close the gap. Because we have a route that goes from the chronobiologist all the way down to like the pizza chef. And technically we can probably have a connector that goes up this way. Or we just go across our little terrace situation here up and over the mountains and then just through here. That might be a little bit of a project for us to do for here. We do have a fair amount of PCCs. We've been picking them up off of different things. And we are slowly but surely getting some more bandwidth here. Can I see that one? Yeah, I can. It's got just enough height on it. And then that literally just sits us right here. That's not bad. Right next to some sandalweed. Doodle-doo. Good morning. Alright, so that'll go there. I'm actually gonna hook onto that one and see if it actually does see these. It should. It should be close enough to see the monorail lines. What the? That just came out of the floor. What? I guess we got a catapult here. You know, I do wonder, like, these got upgraded so that we can literally just yeet ourselves on them like we're playing fucking Mario 64. No, I don't roll. Oh, you fool. And fucking arm damage those. Damn it. Get in there. Launching thrown weapons. Thrown weapons such as grenades can be launched from inside the cargo catapult's cargo pod once its parachute has been deployed. Remote weaponry. I want to throw my whole damn self out. That's what I'm trying to do. How do we do that? It said I could. Do I gotta upgrade it to do that? Do I gotta hold it down to do it? Hold on. Let me see something. Oh, there's another. Hold on. Enter catapult pod. Let me just crawl up in here. I am the cargo. Drop pod detected. Oh, that's really hard to see because of the light. But that's not bad range-wise. Is there any way to actually see? Directly into the sun. If I hear that, I'm gonna go in a fucking water. Shit. I am curious as to how this is gonna go, though. Maybe like here. Oh my god! Hi. Okay. Not as bad as it could have been, but also not as far as I was expecting either. I think I'd have to be a little less cowardly and just yeet it out. But that does make me curious because we could just cancel it whenever we wanted. Hold on. I'm gonna do it again. It's like a little kid finding a slide. Whee! Oh my god!
Oh, what a wonderful view!
He's always just so full of whimsy, isn't he? Ooh. Is that letting me steer this too much? Drop pod inbound. Too fat. So, beep beep. Okay. That's kind of neat. How far is that gonna put us from our truck? Cause I gotta go back to my truck.
Yay!
Woohoo! Oh, That's no good. This is actually out of range for the liners. Fuck. Now, the issue with this... Let me drop myself real quick. The issue with this is that this is on a hill. There's just enough elevation that I can see that one. I'm gonna get rid of this one though, because it's not really serving our purpose, and I feel like making one in between this and the other liner is a waste. So we're gonna try to see if we can get one between here
Structure successfully dismantled.
and that monorail in a way that we don't have to make a second one. We got a little bit of leeway here. Ah, see? And it was legitimately just a matter of a couple feet or a couple meters. Yeah, there you go. That makes a connection right there. And that we can probably piggyback off of to get across the river or somewhere else. Hopefully. So we'll throw this here. Kind of sucks that it's going to chunk into our newly gained bandwidth, but whatever.
Construction process now complete.
Okay. His fucking leg gear is just encrusted with blood. Fuck. I talked about it before, but the idea of like basic mechanical exoskeletons and stuff for workplaces seemed like it kind of came and went very quickly. And I think it was mostly just because there was such a bad like work environment corpo kind of tinge to it. It was like, oh, more efficiency so you can work longer. Like the purpose is just too easy to paint in a bad light, even if there were benefits. This game kind of does that too. I feel like part 1 did it more than this does. The idea of railing against the grind, even though they made a really good gameplay loop anyway. But that's supposed to be part of it too. It's so deep. Even though I just like doing deliveries. But like actual delivery service stuff isn't really like this, which is probably a lot safer and yet also a lot more aggravating. This watchtower is just in the way. Yeah, because there were very basic ones that were just like... just basic mechanical ones that made carrying loads a little bit easier, or they could lock into place and give people like a chair or crap like that. A lot of it was just gimmicks and things like that though. So we can't see this one. It's too far. It's not even like entertaining the idea of it being too far, you just can't fucking see it. So we gotta make one that's either near the river or across the river. And see if it can do it. It would have to be off a diagonal. But even though this does have elevation, it's not really in a good spot to really see anything. It might be another situation where we'd have to get rid of that one and maybe put a different one somewhere else, so it's not too in the way. Because the one thing that we need, the closest other place, is either this shelter, which is still a good spot, but there's also the Ghost Hunter that probably needs a zip checkpoint as well. Especially because there's another just BT area with this weird... I don't know if this is just like an old village, or is this just like an old monorail line or something. But it's looking kind of fucked. Ooh, that one's got like nothing in it. No one's contributed a damn thing. We actually will be able to do this one. I'm gonna mark that. Such is a possibility. Alright, let's take a look from a little bit further away. I have a feeling going across the river. What did you just pick up? Handmade model is gonna be too far, unfortunately, but we'll see. Ooh. Oh. Ah, that's out of range. So even if this is... Whoop. There's one over there. Oh, the other monorail line. Stupid bridge is in the way. Goddamn. So this is close enough. This goes across to what? It goes through the bridge? Can I go through there? No. Or I guess that'll let me. How much closer do I gotta get to you? How much space do I have from here? 271, and it's still doing it. This is where I run into the river or something stupid. Oh, good. If I put this too close, when this, like when it rains or potentially floods, there's a good chance that that will, what's the word? Start to corrode this, which sucks. And I feel like if I go across the river, that's gonna be too far. It's 321. I think the bigger issue is that that's at altitude. If it was a little bit lower, it actually would still have more slack, but it doesn't. That's kind of shitty. Yeah. Oh, don't switch structure. Put it back. Put that back. No, fuck it up. Put it back to what it was. I want a jump ramp. Okay, put it away. I'm gonna entertain it and see if I can still see it across the bridge. We're probably not. Now, if we can't, all we have to really do is just go further down the monorail to the one that it was trying to see over here. That is an alternative. We just have to remember that we can do that. Gotcha. But I think before we do that, we should go to that one that we know is there and see what we can really see from there. Oh, what is this? It's like some gates here. Wait, I ran over an animal? Oh shit. Oh, fuck. I didn't even realize. I don't know how I feel about loose mood improving from that. Oh, some weird shit's gonna happen when we go through here. What the fuck? What is all this? Oh, I'm stuck. Oh, I'm stuck. It's fucking with the camera. What is all this? Looks like something you'd find in like... Oh, is that a goddamn... What do you want, dude? Get away from me. Hey. I already made some roadkill. I don't need to make more. Go somewhere. Yo, is this just like a giant cryptobiote nest? What the fuck? What is this? It is. At least it looks like it. There's a little one here. What are these guys? Chlorobiote. Are those new? No, I think those are for stamina. Which is still good, because if that's true, then we haven't had any in a while. I'm gonna grab these guys. What are you guys? Or chlorobiotes. And we got a big old high-five pit here. Oh my god, there's so many. Oh, high-five time. Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh. So many pea crystals, I can't believe it. I think if you pee on these, they get bigger, right? I wonder if these are naturally here or if people just help them form over time. Oh, I need to drink water first. I just pee. I just drank real quick. Start chugging. Am I all loaded up and ready to go? Obviously, I wouldn't happen that fast normally, but still. I am ready. Let me aim it. The Lou. You think you're so funny. Silly. A wamble. I feel like I should catch you just so I don't run you over. It's just like dancing around the tires. Where did you go? Hello? I don't see him. Are you? I don't know why these are here, but we've seen something like this in the giant tar lake off to the east, and it's just in the middle of the lake, just a big gate like these. I don't know if it's implying that this is just some part of some old thing. This is in Australia, and we're trying to make another plate gate that connects to another region, and I wonder if it would end up being Japan. Although, to be honest, that seems almost too obvious. Come here, you old skittery fucker. Grab you and put you in the truck.
Right. Got a little cargo under the shelf in the back.
Yep. Oh, that's a weird spot for that. I get what he was trying to do. But outside of seeing over this hill, I don't know if it would really be able to do much else. Yeah, there's no connecting lines. A better spot feels like it would be up there. And if we have to keep using our own bandwidth for this, this is going to be tough. Now, it does make me curious, though. Because, again, the other alternative is to just completely circumvent this whole little island here and go off of this liner instead and see if there are any that we can latch onto. Out of what we see immediately, there's one here. There's another there. I don't think these can see each other. This is something that we were tempted to use as a baseline for another thing at one point. And it's not an awful spot to maybe put one here and then across to the Ghost Hunter itself. But it does seem like we would have to make an in-betweener one way or the other. So it might be for the best to skip this. That says there's a mine here. Savannah mine. Have we seen this? It's just a small outpost. It's not a big one. It's just underneath this shelf. Which I'm assuming means it's just off the road. This highway that's here leads to where that is. Okay, let's go look at that actually. So down and around. Right now where that is. But yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do when it comes to the zip line. Is just go closer to Knot City and see if we can. Oh, there's a rest stop off of the highway here. Scared me for a second. I was like, what the fuck just hit us? What'd you see? Oh, for Eastward. Yeah, grab it.
You're mine.
Another little tar pit there. Now, we got a mine facility here. Tiny little one. Oh, that might be too close. Oh, nice. This out. Might as well restore you. Taking these off my shoulders. We need more special alloy. But you can contribute this at least. That's another objective for us then. Because every once in a while, as long as these are restored, there's always a chance of other players getting stuff and leaving it. And or just, you know, it being residual that we can use for other things. Yeah, we got a fistful of special alloy that we're gonna need for that. There's another paver over here. A lot of chiral crystals and little pits here. Why is there something for the inventor way out here? That's like on the other side of the map. Ugh. Pee on this real quick. There you go. I should probably hold on to that. In fact, let me look at something. We do have that chunk of ceramics. The paver's in the desert. Yeah, 360 for that. 300 for this. We could actually just do that one if we wanted. I should probably hold off on this one. And just go back over that way later. Ah, it's fucking timefall, dude. Unless... Yeah, it's not too far off, actually, huh? We can go terrorize the terrorists over here, too. Take their shit. Probably have some materials for us. that they're just so eager and gracious to share with everyone instead of just hoarding it, right? Oh yeah. Dun dun. Hey, another stretch of road, baby. Let's go. Yeah. Infrastructure. If only real roads were that easy to make and fix, right? Just throw random materials in it. It'd be like one of the best recycling programs in the history of ever. Nah, chemicals. Boo. Boo.
As good as new to me.
Alright, that ticks it up a little bit. Now it is time for the pillaging. Yes. There's legitimately just a guy up there. Hold on. I'm not really gonna sneak on him. But I probably shouldn't bring the truck too close. The guy up there.
Trouble nearby.
It's interesting that they completely got rid of that scanner minigame where they can find cargo on you with their own tech, because they got it. It makes a noise when you're nearby and all that. So, hi, buddy. Shut your ass up. Take it down. Ow.
Are you okay, Sam?
Is that nice? I'm coming for that booty. That little leg sweep that he does. You're not getting away either. Oh yeah. Hold on. Settle down with this fucking truck. Alright? God damn. Shut up. Be quiet. Oops. A little too close for that. You guys are sturdy for nothing. God damn. Oh, there's one over here. What are you doing? Hi. Hello? Come on, get out from under there. Oh, I gotta reload faster, please. Anybody else? We got some medals here right out of the gate. See, that's not bad. Alright, let's go get our truck. We'll bring her on home. It looks like those old little toy trucks or toy cars you push around in. The old Fisher Price car. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna hold on to it still because if we go into the shelter, that should still give us a reload on that. Keyword should. Okay. A little bit more material here. I'm good. Still need more ceramic than we do metal. Resins are still useful because of the liners.
You're mine.
Whoa.
Snag it.
Didn't need that. Didn't need that either. It's not grabbing weird shit.
You're mine.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's the way.
Big old chunk of metal.
You're mine.
Alright, let's see what's in here. No, I don't want to do that. Oops. Fuck. Where is it? Put it on the truck, not on your back. What's wrong with you? Thank you. No, didn't need that either.
Gotcha.
No, didn't need that either. Nope. Not the ladder. Oh my god. What am I gonna do with that? I'm gonna try to get in here. Hey, hey, move your little legs. Crunch. There you go. Now they just go down the other side. Guy's gonna wake up with a flattened leg, like. Whoa, whoa, why is there a bunch of explosive shit in here? What? Fuel cells, alkali metals? Jesus. Might as well just put a thermite bomb in here while you're at it. Fucking shit. So not a bad haul. Unfortunately, it's still mostly metal, but that is stuff we can still use. Just kinda hoping for a little bit more ceramic. Oof. But progress is progress. Now the question becomes, do we try to put it in this other one? This still has a ways to go. This other in between is not much better. In fact, most of them aren't. It sucks. I think the other thing that's a little bit rough is that it's nice that we have all these things on a highway. We would have to put another bridge of some sort and just hope that it doesn't erode quickly for it to really be relevant for the ghost hunter. Which is kind of why I'm still keen to figure out a means for the zipline route instead. But it might be time to... Wow, both of these only need ceramics. There's no metal requirement for these. Is there for this one? This is durability. It's already done. It just doesn't go very far because it just goes to the mine. But that also means that the mine's not done. We need more special alloy for that. Did we really pick? I don't think we did. I think it was mostly just metal. Because the other little mine here needs more special alloy too. Oh yeah, we just had this bird. It's just a bird in here. Only one, and it's only for 120. Ooh, hold on. I'm gonna go up there. Because that requires only a fistful of metal. We definitely got enough for that. And we got another shelter that we're connected to here now. Nice. Alright, so... Oh, does that branch? Is that what that... Hold on. This hooks off to the mine, I guess. Is there another one near here? Or is it just saying that, like, there's the mine on the other way over here? I don't see another one. There's a safe house. There's nothing overlapping. To my understanding, there isn't really another mine from here to there. Ceramics is there. Same with that. This one needs probably a good deal. Yeah, no one's really invested in that because the last leg from there to there, you might as well just do the liner wherever that actually connects. Well, no, because it hooks really hard to the left, so I guess that really wouldn't be relevant. It would be nice to have that as an offshoot for the Pioneer, though. Would not be opposed. We're still gonna do this one. So that's just a really easy thing. But this branch is off towards the pavers that go near the data scientists. That one still has a lot that needs to be done. And so does this one. Which is weird to me because I would say that this area needs it the most just because of how rocky and fucked up it is. I guess most people just go out and around into the desert. So maybe they just don't care as much. There's a structure or something there. Is that a request for something? What is that? It's a foundation for a safe house. People have contributed to it, but who's making the request? It's just under construction. We don't really have the special alloys for it, but we have a little bit of resin. It's not attributed to anybody. It's just there's an owner as a player. That's odd. I haven't really seen things like that before. Kangaroo fur, and there's a fucking kangaroo here.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah. Grab all this. High five time. Hand it over. Where? This is right. Is it? Or is that the other one? No, that's the other one. No. That is it. Okay, no. I'll go there. Get this kangaroo out of the way, dude. What are you just doing out here?
Looks like a path.
Dun, dun. Oh yeah. Check that up. Hell yeah. So this is still offshoot from where we're at. That one still has a pretty big requirement on it. Oh no, hold on. Is that the other ceramic? Yeah. Hold on. No, let's finish this one. This is the other ceramic one. Yeah, a little bit of this. A little bit of the extra juice. Nah, don't fucking roll. You fool. Okay. Not that that really helps us right now, but they're trying to get that other lost cargo over here. And that does give us more of a smoother route towards the mine. Alright, dude, come on. Climb on up there. Come on. Oh my god. Wiggle that butt. Get up in there. Ugh. Come on, dude. I'm begging you. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yo, take a load off, dude. I'll just need a sec to give the order data a once-over. For real? I can't believe you brought me this cargo. I think I might be getting a crush on you, dude.
Damn.
Now displaying your current
Order rate.
See you later.
Should've just brought the fucking...
Guess we're still not all that friendly yet, are we?
What did I mean?
Order completed. Well done.
I mean, we're only 1 star away. We're getting there.
Thanks, brother. Got nothing but appreciation for you.
Is there anything I can bring from here? Well, you know what I should grab? It's time to cash that check. A little bit. Because we need... I'll recycle this. There you go. Be weird if you could refill that. Clay material, special alloy. Not on the backpack. Put it in the truck. Well, what's wrong with you? The hydrolysis. Hydrolysis in the pizza shop. We have... No, I was gonna say we kind of have enough highway for all that. Going across this means going into BT country here. But it's pretty easy in general to avoid. It's not that big a deal. But yeah, having that other fork near the data center just be paved would be nice. So we can just take that and go up. I'm gonna hold off on these, at least for now. Is there any other materials that you got? Special alloy. I don't want to get this mine up and running. And I think special alloy is the last thing that it really needs, right? Yeah. So we should have enough. We'll get all that fixed up. I'm also gonna go rest over here. So we can get that grenade launcher potentially reloaded. And maybe get our truck fixed up. A white kangaroo! Is that the one that we've been seeing running around? Fan of fur, the white kangaroo you rescued on my collection. Don't worry, it fallen off naturally. No tearing or shearing involved. I was able to get up close, so I got a decent picture. Check it out. I don't know if I'd trust the local variants and not kick my ass trying to put it in a bag somewhere. Ooh, yo, put it in the truck. Oh, you're up. I'm gonna eat. I am caked in blood after fighting several cells worth of terrorists. He's just gonna lay in it. Oh, we gotta go shower first. What's wrong with you? Yug. Oh, time for our usual morning routine. Bugs. Bugs and tea is our breakfast. Some distant future that will probably be a thing, but thankfully not right now. Alright, back to the surface. Should probably also save. Gotta check our runtime here. No, we're still good. We got some wiggle room here. No problem. Alright. So we're gonna try to get our mine restoration endeavor done. We will have some leftover special alloy. We could try to go do that other little one. Just hit the highway here and go back around to where we were. Get up. Just go. Ooh. There we go. Still lots to go on this one. Not as much of a priority. This is pretty much just the last leg for the mine itself. And the mine itself has a monorail that we can use, which is good. It definitely busts your balls with how this fucking sand is actually treating our tires. But we got this other stretch of highway we can use. And we'll save energy here. Alright, Northeastern Mine is here. Alright. That was actually clean too, damn. And now this place is operational.
Might be time for a new pair of shoes.
Getting there, but not quite. Gotta wear those bad boys down to the nubs. And we'll replace them. So the bigger thing for us is that this is a checkpoint and it is another means of travel. But I should see what material this works on. Also, what kind of shared shit is here? Oh, I put resins in here at some point? Huh. Nothing shared yet. Maybe later. Then again, I have a feeling that there's a reason why this one doesn't get used. Hold on. No, this is for metals. That's not bad, actually. And we have enough. Oh. Shut up. Shh. We're starting to talk about certain versions of games on PC that are going to start losing their compatibility, like immediate native compatibility with Windows 10 in favor of 11. That's going to be a whole thing for a while. But yeah, they're always talking about, oh, your computer needs to be OS update ready. Can you make the transition? It's like, I don't want to. It's still kind of ass. Big old chunk. I don't think I can put these in here. The off-roader might be a little heavy if you do all that. And put that in the private locker. We'll grab a few. I'm gonna take a look at the map. Because a good chunk of this could just go into here. And we'll have the metal part of this done. Several of these could probably use that. Ceramics, metals, yeah. This one as well. We need special alloys for this. So it's not necessarily super helpful for that, but it's kind of whatever. That being said, now that the mine is officially done, we can use that to get over to Eastport not whenever. Crap. I'm a little tempted to do that right now. Just to see what we can do over there. Because that will get us closer to some of the other shit that we want to mess with. So we shall use the monorail. Take ourselves over here, load the vehicle. And load ourselves. And away we go. This is our maiden voyage on the new monorail line.
Fucking rocks!
Probably one of the safer ways to travel so far. And it's a pretty good stretch, all things considered. Big old thing of material. Whoa. What is this curve? Ooh. I guess because it's trying to stay out of the way of the highway paver. It's like literally dug in right here. It's like between it. They kind of weave in with each other a little. Open up. All right. Well, let's take a look here. Couple things. What kind of deliveries did we do? We also have some stuff to return. Some medicine.
Oh, pleasure to see you. Hang on while I process your orders. Oh, dropping off someone else's stuff. And here we thought it was gone for good.
Oh shit, we just got a fucking free star, hell yeah.
It's because of you that we can offer this.
More patterns, what's this? Road upgrade available. Auto pavers now use the upgrade roads to level 2. What does that do? They were talking about infrastructure upgrades at this place, though. Does it just make us go faster? Does it charge us up or
I'm
something?
increasing the amount of materials you can withdraw. Hopefully it'll be enough for your needs.
Let's see if he explains it.
We've improved our road restoration tech. Once you've restored a segment of road, you can now add additional materials to the auto paver to upgrade it.
What to do?
Upgraded roads have special roofs that'll protect you from timefall.
Yo!
They'll also enable vehicles that use them to travel at faster speeds.
Ooh.
You should find that they have improved acceleration and can hit higher top speeds when boosting.
Hell yeah.
It should go without saying, but driving faster just comes with its own risks. So be sure to take extra care when negotiating curves, okay?
Yep.
Wouldn't have been able to achieve this breakthrough without your assistance, Sam. Thanks so much for the help.
Hell
Oh, I've
yeah.
also got a new suit design to share with you.
Thank you.
I personally think it's genius. It was apparently the signature look of a prepper back in the UCA. If you're willing, we hope you can continue to support our work. Take care now.
Might be in our interest to do more for these guys.
Well done.
What kind of shit do you have here? Nothing I can use except for this. Thank you. What the? It's just a ladder there. Okay. I guess. Oh, just a player was whatever. Are any of them official, like NPC ones? No, not really. There's still that fucking bird in here. I can hear it. It's like, what are you doing? Where am I? Oh my god, this fucking tar fisher we got going on here. Tar fisher. So this is the outer limit for where we can build stuff. There's no forks out here. That being said, we also literally have a highway and a monorail to go out this way, so maybe that's why, but you know. Yeah, no. The actual liner rail spot for this side is not too far away. I'm pee in this. I'm gonna put pea crystals in it. Ah. Oh, it's so close. Boop. Ooh. What do you mean? Oh, I actually don't have enough. Fuck. Fucking shit, dude. Goddamn fucking damn it. I might have to bring the materials from the mines out this way. We won't have enough ceramics regardless. But let's try to visualize a little bit. So our fork issue leaves us with the alternative of trying to fork something off from here. It's hard to say what could really see something from here. Maybe out this way and then up. Ideally, it would be something maybe here. What is that pointing to? Something way away from here, actually. There's no other community forks except for this one. And this is a little too tucked in to necessarily see anything, and there's no other community ones for it to latch onto anyway. We'd have to do most of the leg for that. We already have a route that goes towards the nut, the chronobiologist as it is. And this far path, for the most part, seems doable. And it seems like there's a generator here. There's a worn path that winds all the way around and over there. But there's also a spot here where the transponder and all that is. It's near the Eastern Environmental. From here, we can't really go up. It's actually too steep. There is another fork here that we could probably connect up here. It'd be easier. So, someone put a transponder. I don't know if this one has one. It probably does. It'd be funny if they were just using that for the last leg. And I think that's going to be our last slow project today. It's figuring out a way to at least complete this basic circuit from where we're at. Because then we can grind some stars between some of these places. Just on zipline deliveries alone. And that would be nice. Oh, that's a rock. Move. Out here looking around, running into shit. Global Rotwine. That sounds gross. Yeah, no. It's just... there's an obstacle. And the obstacle is its own motherfucking self. Because of the stupid line. No. Maybe out this way? The other thing is whether or not 230, right? Like, it's not super far away. Ow! Grab it, dude. Get up here. I think it's still not far enough away, unfortunately. Yeah, like it's almost directly behind it. Which means you'd have to go really far out this other way, but then the border's there. Something sounds like a... is that another songbird? Sounds like a fucking ray gun. Well. Who are you shooting over there? Yeah, it is. Look at him. Pew pew pew. Hi, buddy. He's dancing. Sounds like a little droid. Hey, come here, you. Making all that racket. Shush. I'll go put you in this truck and then we'll try to figure out a different angle here. But, excuse you. Inside. Now, if that's going to be an issue, let's see about getting a little bit closer to the coast here. That's the way. See what's looking at what here. Yeah. But nothing else, huh? It's not picking up anything. And at this point, it's out of range for that. That's a little unfortunate. Is this a player owned one? It is. And it's just for a safe house. But it seems like it's in the way of a bridge. This needs metals. We don't really have, I don't think, anymore. That is something we could do. Yeah, our option of doing this off of the monorail seems to not be very viable, unfortunately. I think the only way that it would be able to see off of the one that's across the river here would be if we did it further closer to the actual city itself and then brought it further out or in. I feel like that would be a waste of bandwidth just to have something that would actually work in that spot. Likely have to be somewhere more so out here. Right on the border of like this. And even here, it's still in the way of itself. Which means the only real way to do it would be to put one right at the border off of here that just gets it closer. and then put another one out from there, which sucks. Because from here it can probably... Yeah. Oh, it's trying to grab onto that one that's over there. Where's the road gonna be? Seems like it would just be in between these. Alright, now the thing is, this is closer. Because unfortunately, zip lines on monorails don't let you go into the facilities because they're too low. It won't like suck you back up into that spot. You just can't see anything else except for those two. So we had to make one further out there, maybe on that ridge. And see what we can connect to from there, or just make another one further out. Kinda sucks. Not really what I was hoping we'd end up doing. Doesn't seem to be much of a way around it. That being said, the question becomes, how far away can we really get away? Oh, hey, buddy. Really get away with here? Is that my last VCC? Yeah, it looks like it. Oh, I'm gonna have to make more. Ugh. Out of range already. Damn. Yeah, I feel like the leg we have to make here is gonna take a long time to do. No, 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 no. Okay. Drones, we are gonna use sorties. Just to have a lazier way back up here. It's out of range still. Damn.
Looking good.
This is everything is getting a little bit tough because this is a very long stretch of land here. Like, I don't know if we're really gonna be able to finagle one that's past these mountains without having to make another one at elevation, maybe around here. And then seeing where we can go from there. And even then, that has to go through BT territory in order to get to the Ghost Hunter itself. Which sucks. Either way, we're gonna have to go fabricate some more shit. You know, I could try to figure out where that ladder is, or I could just do this. Hello guys, just run around in a panic. Poor baby.
Your service in transporting this cargo is appreciated. The delivery will be assigned to another porter. Your service in transporting this cargo is appreciated. The delivery will be assigned to another porter.
Oh, wow. Ceramics and that's it, huh? Put that in the truck. Alright. I'm getting stubborn now. I'm just trying to make this shit work. Ah. Oil of cryptobiome. Not to be confused with oil of Elaine. So that one's up there. We're gonna need another one further up at elevation to clear all this. I can get away. We'll also have to see if that's enough distance, or if that's going to be a bit of an issue in terms of range. Now, putting the ones near the BT area is going to suck, because we're probably going to have to kill some shit over there. But let's see what we're talking about in terms of range here. So probably had to put it maybe around here, so that doesn't seem very far. That's why I'm kind of like, so we might be able to put it out in a different area instead. How much range is that? Yeah, it's only 196. We got a lot of wiggle room here. Now, again, that does have some view. If we put it where this opening is, it can maybe see it down there. We should test that. Can you see it? I put it here. Yes. Will you continue to see it if I keep going out this way? Yes, you will. Now, how much leeway do we really have? I guess is the question there. It's not seeing it right now. So we can try to wiggle this bitch a little bit. Make it so I can see it. We're also losing altitude, which sucks. I'm still seeing it. Obstacle. Is the obstacle the car? Or is the obstacle the fucking height? It might be the height. That's no good. That's no good. Hold on. Maybe. Because this is still a certain amount of range. It's not gonna be able to see it here. But I'm thinking maybe up there. Right, because that's still further out. We're still getting more distance out of it. And then we just have to... Oh, the Wawa. The Wawa. Run, brother. Run. Use those little leggies. You can see it. Ah, okay. Hey.
Great when I step in.
Oh, that's actually gonna put it closer to here. Yeah, okay. That may connect. Now, like I said, it's kind of a rough spot for it to be. Because I don't know if we can really angle that in a way that's advantageous, but it will be away in a less direct route away from the BT area. And this does connect. 343. 293. It's a good usage of distance. Alright, we'll hazard it.
Right.
And we'll see what it looks like over there. Ah, stop tripping and dipping all day, goddamn. Let's go get in our truck. I say as if it's my truck. It's not. It is borrowed. Oh my god. Ooh. Okay. Making progress, at least. Not gonna be quite as straightforward, but might be a little less dangerous depending on the kind of BT activity in the borders of this BT site. Get this little charge. Oh, does that have the mortar header? No, I think that's another hook like mine. Okay. Let's put this here. Alright. So that can see to here. There's nothing near here. that it can latch onto, except for the one that we just made, I don't think. The easier thing to do would just be to make it around the edge of these rocks. The more advantageous potentially thing to do would be to put it up there somewhere, so that I could overlook more area, and then we could just go from there. Or potentially latch it onto something that's a little bit closer to the chronobiologist, but I don't think it's going to be close enough for that. Unfortunately. This is really steep, by the way. Thankfully, it's pretty rocky, so our truck has a decent amount to grab onto, which is of course why they're still trying to bust our balls by making it rain. Oh, make everything slick. You're not supposed to take a truck. Hey, brother. Stop hassling me. I hate it. I hate this game. When it does shit like this, it just pisses me off. Let me do what I want. Okay. Now I can see a fair amount from here. Now, whether or not that's gonna be very helpful, or if you can see over that lip over there, we're gonna have to see once we go back down, because we're not gonna be able to put something immediately across there right away very easily. Another big old BT shitter area right here. I'm assuming these are just old, like, highway stakes or something. Not really sure what they're supposed to be. My God, it just can't let me just do shit. Fuck off. I don't feel like it, dude. Your BT fights suck. The worst part of your game, not doing it. Oh, we've hit our wall, huh? That's a bit of a problem. Now what we could do. I wonder if I can switch. I don't know if it'll matter for this area. I don't know if this and the area in Mexico have a different bandwidth amount. They probably do. So what we might have to do is start closing some shit up that we're not actually using. The other issue is that a lot of this stuff isn't really complete in terms of other routes to get to some of the newer stuff that we've gotten unlocked. And that kind of sucks. The mountains in general have been such a hassle for us. But if that's the case, we're probably better off just going to the Ghost Hunter directly then. There's not much we can really do about that. What is the button to look at other areas? Yeah, it's not really easy to see. A couple of these shelters we can probably get rid of, to be honest. I hope that restoring stuff doesn't really count in the same way, but maybe it does. Yeah. I made some charging stations around here that I can probably get rid of. Yeah. Alright. That frees up a little bit. I think, yeah, visibility wise, this is too far out. I don't know if we can really finagle something out this way. There's a fork here, which is interesting, because I don't know why that is here. I can almost see this one, but it's still too far away. Similarly, I think it's been made pretty apparent that this is still a generally dangerous area, unfortunately. But I don't know if we would really have proper visibility further up either. I think in general it's just too far away. Oh my god, it's not climbing. So I can move. Yeah. So we would have to put one.
Nice. Just like that, Sam.
You would have to put one that's up on that ridge to clear it, which sucks. Because that's way too close. That's a wasted distance. Gotta go get some real boots later.
Let's get this show on the road.
Try not to fall now.
Oh my god.
Oh boy, that must hurt.
Together.
Yeah, don't think so, but I would still want to see him. That's so good. Yeah, we're not gonna be able to do that.
Seriously?
It's irritating. I hate it because it's such a waste. Fuck. Now it grabs onto there, but that's like in the middle of that area. But if it's already doing that, we might as well just get rid of that line there. And just use this one instead. So this one's useless.
Construction process now complete.
We're gonna take this down and get back towards the truck. Just go somewhere, dude. Alright, so now we have one that's a little bit more visible from a different area. I don't know if we used all the ones we already had or if they got too damaged. This one's still hanging out there, but this one's out of range. That's not a great hop. Just because of where it is. But that's also too high. This makes me wonder if being a little bit more level would actually give us some more slack. But if not, ideally, the next hop for where that communal one is would still be further away anyway.
Enough already.
Yeah, that's no good.
Too close for comfort.
Lost it there.
And he's not slipping for like 2 fucking seconds. God damn. We might have to force our way back down. Damn.
Okay. That's no good.
No, it's not. Oh, this area sucks. Is that the outer bound for this? No, we still got some space. That's out of range.
Done.
Right. So where does that put that though? Also, I don't think we're gonna be able to get that truck anywhere safe. Unfortunately. Oh my god, I don't care. Go away.
Wowzer!
So we do have some zip lines that are a little bit closer to this area. But I wonder which one is way out there. Okay. But I think that's a communal one. Yeah. It's not doing very well condition-wise either. Because there's just constant fucking timefall here. Okay. Now, whether or not the truck can survive going out that way, I don't know. Probably not. Let me see something. Oh, I need to unfilter. Yeah. This needs to get fixed. Because this is part of our leg. Same. I don't know why they put so many along the river. Because when it floods, these naturally take extra erosion. It's kind of a stupid thing to do. But, considering our own limitations in terms of bandwidth, we can't really be picky right now. The safe house is right here. I don't know if the truck could really survive going all the way there. What we could do in the meantime is just abandon this. Store a bunch of this shit here. Since it's not our truck anyway. Just recycle all the junk that got destroyed. can't really have too much faith in this thing right now. But I think from here we can actually do this. So we're gonna put this on our back and maybe put the carriage out. Purely gotta. Is the shelter out there way anyway? So things go a little... Oh, alright, that's okay. So we'll use this fork. Alright. So technically we do have our leg. It's very haphazard in this area in particular, but it is usable. There's a risk that we will get yoinked off the line by BTs in that one part of the stretch, which is not great.
This waterway is the East River. It flows through Australia's eastern savanna.
Well, as long as we can maintain these,
It's one of the continent's longest rivers.
we should be alright.
Extremely wide and tremendously voluminous. It can be especially difficult to cross the East River when it floods.
This one can't see that. But where's the one for our other thing? There's another route from here that goes towards the pizza guy. I have to see if I can try to find it. Is the shelter out that way? It's near here though, right? I'm pretty sure. There's a fork over there. There's a charging station that way. I'm gonna go here because I want that other container to get sprayed down. But I might have to make another fork in between here and there then. I was hoping that the one near the chrono would be something that I could latch onto.
Nothing to worry about.
There was a time
Yeah, there's a fork up here. There's a Kyle Bridge that'll take us a little bit closer, but yeah, somewhere between here and there, we're gonna have to make another one. Now, whether we make it on the other side somewhere, because that will latch onto that too. Is that where that shelter is? No, that's something else.
Doing fine.
Keep it up, Sam.
Let me see. So range-wise, it would have to be here. Probably around where that shelter is. And then hopefully that would latch onto this. Or, we go across the river and see about making one maybe around here somewhere. Because that'll, maybe if we have enough. No, that's really tucked in there. Ah, that sucks. That's a really shitty stopgap. I don't even know what that connects to. Boo. Boo. That's bad. What does this go to? I thought it would get me a little bit further up that way, but not really. Unfortunately. Oh, we do have a climbing rag here. Hold on. Let me grab this. Let me grab. Let me grab.
Thank you, Kyle. Came in handy. Thanks for the help.
There goes our fork over there. Oh my god. Oh, oh, oh. Not very good. Let's make sure we get all the way around. And then throw it. Except that he's an idiot and he throws it the other way. Like, what good does that do? Throw it the other way. Oh my god, whatever. So the route from the Ghost Hunter, unfortunately, isn't really complete. We can go from the Chrono pretty easy, still. But that's not really the point. It would be better if we could go around the coast. And have access to other stuff in that area. But from here, we should be able to get it over to the pizza guy pretty easy. That's too far. In fact, we might just want to square one either as high up as we can, or just off from over there. Those are our only real options, it seems. Woo!
Yeah!
This is the other connector we made a hot minute ago. Ah, yeah. I'm back at the pizza place.
You did well to make it here, Sam. I'm sorry for making you work late. One moment while I check the orders. Excellent work!
Now displaying your current quarter grade.
As thanks for your assistance.
Oh,
There is something I would like you to have.
what you gonna give me? What is? Oh my god, thank goodness. Thank you. I'm putting them on right now. I don't got bloody feet no more. Well, they probably are still fucked up, but at least they're not gonna get worse. Why are these in here? Damn. What? Oh, aid request. Interesting. Huh.
Familiar roads can become strangers to us at night.
Mm.
Be careful.
Yeah, so we're gonna need some more PCCs then. Damn. Hopefully these guys have a different kind of capacity. And on our back. Orders wise, honestly, a lot of his we can't use the lines for. We gotta take a lot of these by car. That's 300 and 320. Like, that's crazy. His maybe we could try to pull off, but we'd have to get the route completed first. And I think right now it would be best for us to try to get to that shelter a little bit further inland, so we'll just jack a car and get over there. When the stand is deathly. True. It's kind of gross. I'm gonna try to get over there. It would be nice, although not particularly necessary considering how much we don't really have. To have a zip that could go from there just so that we would have a resting checkpoint. So you grab it. Oh my god. Metagenomicis. This is that one fork that doesn't reach anything too, so I guess that kind of answers what that is all about, unfortunately. Put this here real quick. Yeah, I don't think this sees anything. It's a Wawa. We're also gonna pick up some of these because we used some on the way here. Sandalweed. God damn. Oh, that does reach. Well, it reaches that, but not the one that was over there. Okay, that's why. That makes more sense. But that does mean that we have a good way to get here. I just got to keep that in mind when we get to that checkpoint. What we need, though, is one that reaches further out the other way. In fact, if we can use that one. Up. That's the way. That's for another porter. But who is that for? Also, that's breakable, which kind of sucks. Alright, let's look at something.
Gotta stretch my legs.
Baby is not pleased. He's been getting fucked up all day. Get this tree out of the way, move. What is that hooking onto? Oh, yeah. Okay, hold on. That gives us an option here. Will you climb? Fucking shit, use your legs. God damn. It's trees, dude. I gotta like wedge it in between these fuckers. Okay, right. That'll do her. The bigger thing now is just maintaining the ones that they put along the river. I don't think we really have any materials necessarily for this thing either. Okay. We're gonna put this here. I'm gonna see about putting some materials on my butt. Do you have any materials? You do. Ceramics. Don't really need resins right now. Actually, you know what? Ooh, I don't remember. Hold on. Let me look before I do any of that, because typically cargo structures that we make require different things to fix. Yeah, chemicals and special alloys. Chemicals suddenly become a little bit more important in these sorts of situations. For things like this, it might just be a matter of using P crystals. Got my fingers crossed for that. And if that's the case, then there's no real issue. I'll store that for now. Get in there. Honestly, it might be for the best for us to call it here for now. So we know what we're gonna do. We're gonna see about those structures. And then honestly, we're gonna start trying to grind some stars between these places. I'm gonna see about also resolving whatever's going on with the route that's supposed to go up to the Chrono as well. Because that should already be handled. There may be some network issues keeping that from being so, though. We'll have to see. Now let's do our usual routine. We'll grab all these bugs. And all this tea. Alright. Well, that settles that for now. Won't be back until probably a good ways later in the night, as usual. But let us save here. And we're gonna try to find someone to raid over on the Twitch side. Let's turn this down and hit our music here, because there is nothing going on this side for that. Hi. Alright, let's see who's doing what at almost 9 in the morning here. Just started. It's a lot of people starting to do Digimon stories since that's out too. I don't know how many people are like urgently trying to hold off on seeing any of that. I feel like that and Yote are a little bit more open-ended. Then again, people have been playing Silk Song forever, and that's not an awful one for us to go to because Bakumitai is playing that. In fact, that might be where we go. We said hi to Revenchi the other day. Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's say hi to Baka. We are doing some Hollow Knight Silk Song. Or overtuned, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. There's a lot going on system-wise in that game, so I feel like their baseline has to be pretty solid so that people can just kind of slog through it if they want. Alright. No, what the fuck? The bot just is not there. Great. Amazing. But when we come back, we still have one more time slot for Death Stranding. And then when we get to Monday, Tuesday, we'll be doing Super Robot Wars V. And this bot would actually load up. It probably won't in time, but if it doesn't, be sure to be good. Behave for back in me tonight. Oh, I just killed our music, damn. And until next time, I hope you guys have a good rest of your morning, night, or whatever. I'm not sure why that happened. And I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Oh, there we go.